I think we're creating an overly sensitive generation. The resilience is like going down. The overload of information on mental health is just too much. It's good to be informed, but are you taking this on board to help other people to improve the quality of your life, or are you taking this information on board so you don't have to take accountability and responsibility for anything in your life? Everything is gaslighting. Everyone is a narcissist. Everything is toxic. You know, everything is trauma. People have forgotten that there may be some difficult experiences in life, and that doesn't necessarily mean that that was trauma. Really, like, I question, why are you learning all of this? Is it improving the quality of your life?
Do we call you Sally or Gulseli?
Whatever you're comfortable.
I'm going to go Gulseli because I'm Turkish.
You're Turkish. I can
Whatever you're comfortable. I had to shorten it because people were struggling.
Yeah.
What was the most common mistake people were saying? How were they pronouncing
Gulseli.
Gulseli.
Gulseli, because they can't say gul because we have the u. So yeah, just making it easier for people to connect with me.
What made you get into
Mental health
anyway? Was it like something happened in your life and you're like, you know what, I'm going to fight for this now?
No, I've always been interested in the field of psychology, the human mind. My father always said, I would love if you became a psychologist. You need to become a psychologist.
Okay.
He has passion for psychology. He's got a lot of interest. So also just wanting to help people, that desire to help others is what made me get into it. And one other thing was I was at home, young mum. So I had my first child at 19, second one at 23, at home with children. And that was just when these online studies were coming in. And I signed up a 2-year course, which was with AIPC. Did a 2-year counselling course, which qualifies you to be a private practitioner, which I don't believe is enough. And then I decided to further my studies with ACCAP. Did a bachelor in social science and psychology. And then went from there, working at a private school for a little bit, community organisations, and then went into private practice.
Now, because mental health is like this massive story right now in the world, it's booming and everyone's unhappy. I feel like with the unhappy generation, right, this unhappy generation is popping up. You know, I look at my sister, I look at how she was, brought up, not going outside, not playing, not seeing greenery. And I look at myself, which is still not the best compared to the previous generation, and we were still going out and whatnot. And I feel like the next generation is going to be even more unhappy because, we spoke about AI, everyone's just on this tech fanatics, right? Do you believe that the unhappiest generation is growing up?
Yeah, because this generation hasn't had that connection. I grew up somewhere in Broadmeadows in the Housing Commission. A lot of people know that area as being the Broadie Bronx. And you know what? I'm never ashamed to talk about where I came from.
Too, so.
And we used to be outside playing skipping rope, playing 5 rocks. As humans, we're wired for connection at all ages. And what social media and internet and technology has taken most of that away from us. And it's also giving us constant dopamine. We're not wired for receiving constant dopamine without any work we're not putting in any work for that dopamine. And that's really unhealthy for the brain also. Yeah.
No, it really is an abnormal way of living. I don't think human beings were actually meant to operate this way. And now, because we call it efficiencies these days, our technology has made life more efficient, but it just means that we're cramming more into our day, we're pushing ourselves to the limit, and it's not allowing us to get the most out of ourselves, really. So
it's a overload of saturated information that we're being exposed to every day. The expectations that's put on us because everyone is putting out such an amazing, perfect life, whatever perfect means, because I think I don't believe in the idea of perfect. Perfect can change from person to person. But everyone is constantly comparing themselves to other people out there. And if you continue doing that, you're going to fall short because there's always going to be someone better than you, more successful than you, more intelligent than you, more better looking than you. There's always going to be better. And I think we've lost the focus from watering our own grass to looking at seeing whose grass is greener.
Yeah.
And that's quite sad.
Social media.
Yeah.
It destroyed so many minds.
Look, there's a really positive to social media too. If it wasn't for social media, we wouldn't have had this connection. There is a positive to it. It's a matter of how you utilize social media. One of my favourite scholars, Mufti Menk, had mentioned saying that social media is like a knife. Use it the correct way, and there's so many benefits to it. Use it the wrong way, and it can harm you.
Yeah.
So it's a really matter of how mindfully are you using social media.
Yeah.
Do you come across clients that are, I guess, mentally ill? I don't know if that's the right term to use it, because of social media? Is that a very common thing, or is it just like different situations?
So social media does affect everyone's mental health.
Yeah.
It does. The constant scrolling becomes an addiction, and it affects your brain functioning, your cognitive functioning, the comparison that goes on.
Yeah, 100%.
That chips away at your self-worth, your confidence, your self-esteem. It chips away at it because you're viewing and going, look what an amazing mother she is, and I just screamed at my children. Look what an amazing husband she has. My husband just slammed the door and left because we just had a fight. Look how educated this person is, and I stopped studying at year 10. It's constantly chipping away at your self-worth because it's creating so much comparison. And if your personality hasn't yet settled, if you haven't found that true self, if you're someone that has experienced trauma, and what happens with trauma, with another therapy that I'm actually training in is internal family systems therapy, and it talks about subpersonalities. We have many subpersonalities. We have the true self and the ego, right? And when we experience trauma, suffering, or hardships, some of those subpersonalities come to dominate in order to protect us. If we don't do the work, like a perfectionist or the critic, they're subpersonalities. The warrior, constant warrior, the people pleaser. They come in and dominate your true self. And if you don't do the work, those dominating subpersonalities then affect the quality of your life. A lot of people are walking around with defense mechanisms, subpersonalities, they have adopted, and I say, what helped you survive then, which was really good, you needed that, but isn't going to help you survive right now. Sorry, it's not going to help you thrive.
How can you differentiate between when you're exhibiting a subpersonality versus your true self? How do you know what your true self is and whether you're just, you're behaving in accordance with a subpersonality?
So your subpersonality, I guess it's really about sitting and doing the work. What do I do? What do I do when I'm around people? What are some of my traits that affect the quality of my life? Am I able to show up as who I am, or am I constantly wearing these masks? How much belief do I have within myself? So I'm still training through the internal family systems therapy, so I haven't really dug deep into it. I would have loved to be able to give you more insight on that, but I'm still training with that. But it's really good to know that we all have subpersonalities, and they're there because in times of need they come in, they protect us, they help us survive.
How can someone, we were talking about before, people compare their lives on social media, and I'm that type to always tell people, what you see on social media, it's just a show. Everyone puts their good side and leave out all the tough times. So you got to always be careful what you look at. But how could someone build that self-confidence? I feel like, do you feel like it's more of a problem for females than males, these sort of things? And how could they, I guess, improve on that?
maybe my generation of females more, but the younger generation for both males and
Right.
females,
Mm.
especially with the influencers and people that are on there with their sports cars, living life.
100%.
You know,
Crypto billionaires want to be like me,
exactly,
and then they
yeah.
invest and they lose all their money and then depression. So
So
very
yeah,
much.
and then, so with my generation, I would say it was more us women that was affected, but with the younger generations, I would say both males and females are affected equally. It's a really a matter of sifting through your social media mindfully and looking consciously and saying, why am I following this influencer? Am I following to just look at how amazing her life is and make myself miserable about it? Is it just for ads because she shares things that I might find useful and I purchase? Like, why am I following this? What am I gaining from following this? What am I gaining from following me, for example? The people out there, what are you gaining from following me? And if there's nothing positive that's coming to improve the quality of your life, then I would really question saying, do I need to follow this person? Am I causing my own misery and suffering?
Yeah.
But social media has come to this point. It's like a different life. It's like if you don't follow certain people, you're missing out on that part of life.
The fear of missing out,
Yeah.
FOMO.
Yeah.
And that's what really
but
plays with people's
Yeah,
minds.
but I think it's also because, like, to have a social conversation these days, if somebody's
You be
catching up for
relevant.
it, exactly.
Yeah.
To maintain, to have an input in that conversation, I need to know what the latest influencer's doing, what's going on in the lives of the Kardashians, what's going on in so and so. Even though I know that viewing that content and following those people's lives makes me miserable, but to remain relevant with my friends or whatever it is, I need to, I need to be up to date with what's
And
going
that
on.
mind, they're destroying their minds.
So
Yeah.
just on that, how you mentioned that I need to know in order to stay connected with my community, with my friends group, with my circle, I need to be up to date with, which influencer's doing what and what not. But it's really a matter of who is your immediate circle and what kind of discussions do you have? Is that bringing you happiness also? Is that bringing you fulfillment into your life? Is that adding to your life? If you feel excluded from conversations because you don't know what the latest influencer, where they went on a holiday or what car they're driving, then I would really question saying, where are you spending your time and energy?
Yeah.
Is it adding to... This life is a journey. It's a constant journey of growth and development for every person, starting from the moment that you're born to the moment that you die. It's a journey, and you need to always become conscious of who's adding positively to your journey and who's making it harder.
Can you give us an example of how someone could make your journey or your life harder?
In the aspect of social media?
In the
or?
aspect of anything, like from your personal experience, has there been a situation where you looked at something like, this is just toxic, like get out? Can you share some relationships?
Yeah. If a person is living with someone that has a mental health issue, and whether that be a diagnosed mental health condition or just struggles with mental health, they're not willing to do that work, they will be projecting their pain and suffering and making the other person miserable also with them. And there comes a point, no matter how much you love someone, and I've worked with many women where, they've made that decision to step back because, yes, that may hurt a little bit now, but you can't do the work for someone else and you can't hang around for the rest of your life and allow that person to hinder your growth and development.
You have some very, very intimate conversations with your clients. How do you make them feel comfortable enough to open up to the degree that you require them to open up, to be able to delve into those really dark little nooks and crannies,
especially about their relationships as well?
About those things, like how do you do that? Because that it would take a long, long time for someone. Particularly with men, like men have their guard up all the time. We don't open up very easily.
We don't show weakness.
Exactly. So how do you go about sort of unpacking all that with your clients?
So I don't actually push them to talk about certain things. I allow the client to navigate the therapeutic process in their comfort. And I guess if someone has decided to come into therapy, it's because they want to address things in a safe container that doesn't have judgment and is confidential. They're ready to do that anyway. I find that most people are ready to go down the rabbit hole. They're ready to go down that rabbit hole because they've tried everything else and it hasn't worked, and they've done their research and they're ready to go. Most people are ready to go. People that may have childhood trauma, physical abuse, sexual abuse, it can take a little bit longer. It depends how comfortable you build, how well you build that relationship, that rapport with the client, and how much they trust you. I get a lot of clients coming in from different therapists, especially within our cultures, within our backgrounds, where they find it very difficult to understand certain things. Why have you not left him yet? Why have you not told you you're 18? Why have you, moved away from those toxic parents? So they can't comprehend our culture quite well. And so the judgment is there, and they're no longer able to open up to that person because that person's like, oh my God, your dad did that to you and you're still living with him.
They're judging them.
There's the judgment. There's the judgment. Oh my God, I can't believe their husband did that. I'm so sorry. The moment you say, oh my God, and you're so shocked about it, the client's already going, okay, well, you're judging me. Yeah. Whether they really know that on a conscious level or a subconscious level, that really does. The brain understands there's judgment there. They withhold. Then they may continue going for another 1 or 2 sessions, but they're withholding and they're going, no, this is not working for me.
Yeah. Because when a person opens up to that extent and you're probing as well and trying to identify what the real sort of underlying issue is, sometimes the outcome is unexpected from the client's perspective. Like sometimes people may go into, let's say, therapy and say that I expect that my therapist is going to side with me over my husband, that he was the one in the wrong. And then all of a sudden you unpack their experiences and you realize that you were the problem all along. And that introspection is very, very confronting. Have you experienced that with clients?
Yeah, couples therapy, absolutely. Yeah. They come in thinking, all right, the therapist's going to be, she's a female, she's going to be, we're just going to drill into my husband right now. And, as the therapy session progresses, it's like, oh my God.
She's turning on me.
Yeah. So, yeah, I have had experiences like that. But I always let my clients know, it's usually the females that take the first step and contact me and say, I want to come into therapy. I'm going to bring my husband into therapy.
The husbands come?
Yeah, they do. They do. I find that a lot of the time...
Kicking and screaming, but they turn up.
A lot of the times they're very... You can see that they've got their guard up. Their shield is up. Yeah. But slowly when they see that I'm not here to attack you, I'm not here to take her side or his side, I'm here to hold a safe container for both of you. Clearly you're not able to overcome some of your issues in your own privacy, and you need a professional to help you navigate through your communication issues or whatever other issues that's happening in the relationship. So I make that very clear. It's not about taking sides, because I guess taking it from a religious perspective, my husband said to me a few years ago when I dived into couples counselling, he said, babe, remember that you're working against the shaitan, the devil. He wants them to separate, and you're trying to see if there is a way to keep them together. And that's really helped me, because it's not about saying, oh my God, you've done that, you're so toxic. People make mistakes. Yeah. Everybody's going to make mistakes. Are you ready to forgive that? If you're going to forgive that, how are you going to integrate that, the pain that person may have caused you by the mistake they've done? How are you going to integrate that within yourself? Because once you forgive someone, you can't keep going, you did that. You can't.
You can't hold it against them.
You can't hold it against them. You can't keep throwing it back in their face. Obviously, once there's been an apology and forgiveness, we want action to change also, to show in behaviour and action also. So there's, repeated behaviour is going to cause further conflict. But if there's none of that repeated behaviour going on and you're still throwing it in that person's face and holding it against that person, that means that you couldn't integrate. And that's something within you. It's not something within your partner, because you've already decided to forgive. You won't forget, but you need to integrate it. And that's something the person has to go into therapy to do on their own. A lot of the time I do find couples come in, there's been trust issues, trust broken, things have happened in the relationship, forgiveness has taken place, decided to move forward, but one of the parties have not been able to integrate the pain that's been caused, and bringing it constantly surfacing up the problem again and keeping it fresh. And that's causing further confrontation. And I would, in that case, I usually say to the party that is hurt and hasn't been able to integrate it, especially if there hasn't been repetitive behaviour from the other side, is that you need to come into individual therapy.
Yeah.
This is something that you need to work on as an individual. There's nothing he or she can do at this point for you.
What are some of the most common issues between couples?
Lack of communication.
Right.
Lack of communication stems from really not seeing each other and hearing each other.
Okay.
A lot of the time we're talking or we're listening in order to give a response back. When couples come in, I say, when you're actually just listening, not to fix the problem, not to find a cure, not to help, just to listen, because we want to be heard and seen. We all want that. And we want that from our partners. We want our partners to see us and hear us and be present for us. That will improve communication, because if you're sitting and listening to your partner without worrying about what your response is going to be, just purely listening, and there can be an awkward silence afterwards too, and that's fine. You're really taking on board what that person's saying to you, compared to when you're thinking, oh, but we can do this and we can fix it like this and we can do that. Then you're not really listening.
That's a typical man's response. Men are just problem solvers. The wife's talking about something.
I'm a hero. I'm here to save the day.
Yeah, it's shifting from your right brain to your left brain.
Yeah. It is.
Now, since we're on the couple thing, there's a lot of couple issues in this day and age right now. Again, touching on what we spoke about at the start, people compare. Look at them. The husband took her here and blah blah. There's a lot of comparing, and another big issue in the world right now is a lot of men and women cheat on each other, right? And I'm assuming you've had people come to you, maybe together as a couple, or maybe the man or the woman came to you. Is there a way forward? Is there a way to repair a marriage or relationship if a man or woman has cheated?
Yeah, absolutely. I've worked with couples like that, and if forgiveness takes place and the party that has been cheated on is able to really integrate the pain, never going to forget what's happened, but integrate the pain and process it and release it rather than holding it on to with hostility and anger, then they can move forward in the relationship. If there is a sincere apology, if there is sincere change occurring in the relationship, everybody makes mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. Definitely you can move forward in the relationship if it was a mistake and the person that's made the mistake is aware of that. I was actually doing a lot of research on feminine and masculine energy, which affect relationships. We were supposed to be running a workshop on this coming weekend, but unfortunately we pulled the plug on it because there wasn't enough interest in our community, and I believe that's because they don't have a good understanding of what feminine and masculine energy is and how it affects every person's life. I had a mental health coach that I was going to co-facilitate with, and this is her niche, feminine and masculine energy. And we were talking between ourselves with her, and she said, a lot of women don't realise that in order, whether it's from their upbringing, childhood or trauma, they've had to step in to their masculine energy more than their feminine, and they're operating and pulling more from their masculine energy, and they lose that feminine side and they don't recognise that they do. So when the partner sees that feminine side being shown to him from somewhere else, naturally they become attracted to that compared to the partner that they have at home, who may be more controlling, dominating, and is not pulling from her feminine energy.
That's intriguing. Because in today's world where there's a big shift between gender-specific roles, there's a lot of that, women now go out there, they have a career, they have a job, they have an education, they're, a fully fledged career-driven person in their own right. They're drawing on what I would consider to be masculine energy in order to accomplish all those things, which are, I think, traditionally more masculine energy-focused roles. And that's where some men may not see that femininity that they feel would attract them to their spouse. And they say, okay, well, now I no longer like this person, or there's somebody else, as you said, who's exhibiting that energy to me, who I'm now drawn to because I'm not getting it at home or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And could that just be a function of where we're headed as a society?
Sadly, yeah. And with everything that's going on with gender identity, it's... If you're not pulling too much as a female from your feminine energy, you've lost your creativity, you've lost your intuition. And these are things that you need as a female in order to attract the male also. I mean, I'm not an expert on feminine and masculine energy, but these are the things that I know is that, you can push away your partner if you're pulling too much from the masculine energy. If you're starting to dominate his masculine energy, he's going to feel a natural threat. He's going to feel a natural threat, like, hang on, who's the masculine in this relationship? I mean, it's from the way, it's our biology, it's the way we're created. There's no denying of that. Yeah.
Interesting. In your therapeutic practices so far, how much of an impact do you feel culture has, a person's own background or their culture, their nationality has in the therapeutic process? Because we're a very multicultural society in Australia. You probably have clients from all different backgrounds, cultural backgrounds. How much of an impact does that have as a psychotherapist? How much of an importance do you place when you're preparing to go on this journey with a client? How much of an importance do you place on their nationality, their background, in terms of formulating a plan or strategy for them?
I think it plays a huge role. The culture plays a huge role because you're brought up in that. I do put a lot of emphasis on that. It's like how we mentioned before about clients that have come from therapists that aren't very ethnic, and they don't understand the diverse cultures out there and the amount that we can tolerate for whatever the reason it is. And then there's judgment there. So when I'm listening to a client, I can understand, coming from an ethnic background myself, and that's what gives us that connection. And that's why I can help people, because I come from there. And I think that's why I've targeted ethnic communities, because they need that, because they were struggling going to therapists who had no idea that we live in the same country, but we don't live the same way. We may be living in the same country, the same state. We're not living the same way. We're torn between being an Australian and being, from my perspective, Turkish.
Yep.
I'm torn of, when I was going to school, primary school, trying to fit in there, but then coming home and conforming into the cultural identity of, how my parents were raising me. So it's really about putting all that into perspective. Yes, this is a modern woman in the year 2023, but she also still comes from a cultural background that has huge impact on her mental health and well-being. Now, which parts is she willing to shed, right? I work with women that have very narcissistic parents. I can easily say, and these, religious people too. If I wasn't from similar ethnicities, cultural backgrounds, I could easily say, your mother is toxic, toxic is toxic, you need to cut her out. She doesn't want to hear that from me. Yeah. She doesn't want that. she can go anywhere else and they will tell her that.
Mm.
Toxic is toxic. You need to cut her out of your life.
Yeah.
But she can't do that. One, she has too much of a faith. Her religion says, no, mother, mother, mother. To the cultural conditioning and the upbringing and the instillment of what mother is through culture. And so she doesn't want to cut her mother out, but she wants to learn to be able to live or improve the quality of her life by still having a mother in, but how can she not be affected? So it's really about understanding all those little factors.
What advice would you give for that?
Boundaries.
Some my cultural parents don't understand boundaries.
Yeah.
Just bulldoze the boundaries.
to push back is disrespectful, right?
Yeah,
You can't.
100%.
You know?
Yeah, so not so much pushing back, but you find that there is a discussion that's about to start and you know where this discussion's going to lead. You're going to walk away angry, frustrated. You're going to get disowned.
Yeah. Famous Turkish saying.
Yeah.
What that means is I'll make my breast milk not halal for you.
Yeah.
That's what Turkish mum saying.
Yeah.
As a
Very, very dramatic.
Yeah. We are very dramatic people as as Turkish people. And I guess we see that from our series, you know, how long it takes for someone to fall to the ground. But yeah, in that case, it's really about being conscious of where is this conversation going to lead us? What am I going, if I entertain it, what am I going to walk away with? So it's really about knowing your boundary and your tolerance level and going, okay, Mum, love you. I have to go. I've got to go somewhere. I have to go. And really taking yourself out of that environment. That's a boundary. Yeah.
And then you'll have cultural parents that don't even believe in mental health.
Unfortunately,
That's another whole different issue.
Yeah.
Because if you tell them, you know, Mum, I'm not well, you know, all this is affecting my brain, like, just walk it off. Go make mantu or something.
Or go pray.
Yeah, or go
And
pray.
then we
It's the
get
most
that a
common
lot.
one. Allah will help you.
Your din is not strong enough.
Yeah.
And that's something I hear a lot. And I'm very happy now to see a lot of our scholars talking about mental health and saying because someone suffers from depression or anxiety, it doesn't mean that their din or their connection with Allah is weak.
Yeah.
And then just to place that burden on someone, I think, is just not fair.
Yeah.
Because, you know, there's chemistry in your brain. There's a way that, you know, you have a biology, you have an autonomy. And without understanding all of that and just to say, no, you know what, your din is just very weak, is very dismissive.
It is.
And if anything, it puts that stigma, it shames the person, and that person isolates even more and suffers in silence even longer. Because and the longer they suffer in silence, the worse their situation will get, because now these people have judged them, family, people that they love have judged them for saying that they may have a mental health condition. What if this person goes and gets a diagnosis? Imagine the judgment then.
Yeah.
You're weak. It's sad, but we're hopefully breaking through the stigma slowly, but we're progressing. We're breaking through it.
I think another one, particularly amongst our sisters, is the postpartum, right? So that's a stage where obviously they're physically very vulnerable, mentally, emotionally, and then you got the family around them who are expecting that, you know what, you need to be joyful and happy and upbeat, and you have to be making shukr for everything that you have and this and that. At the same time, this poor lady's going through so much, and that the very concept of having, you know, a postpartum sort of depression or whatever it is just it's dismissed entirely.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist.
Yeah, sadly, that and their menstrual cycle each month, which causes changes in their hormones, which affects the mental health of a person. It really does. It doesn't mean that it creates a mental health disorder that needs to be diagnosed, but it does affect. I think the biggest misconception about mental health is that you only seek help if you have a mental health condition that is diagnosed. I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions, because I go to therapy. I don't have a mental health condition. I go to therapy.
Yourself go therapy?
Absolutely.
To yourself? Like
Oh,
a
no,
mirror?
no.
Like-
No. I have a therapist.
Okay.
So in order to also maintain registration in Australia as a psychotherapist counsellor, we need to be in supervision, and you're in supervision with another therapist who is qualified to supervise you. So you need to do that throughout the year, and you need to do OPD, ongoing professional development. But apart from that, I sometimes see my supervisor just as therapy, because he is a therapist. And it's just a way for me to kind of offload everything that's going on within myself, within my thought process, to another person, and that person helping me reframe it or dismiss certain intrusive thoughts and just clear my mind a little bit, so I'm not burdening either my children or my husband or my family with that. And I get to show up to my friends and my family being in a good state where I'm not a burden on them. I think everyone occasionally needs therapy. It's just a really safe space. There are certain things that you can't discuss with your nearest and dearest. There aren't. There are different levels of how much we expose, how much you will see about me. Then there's a level of how much my children will see. And then there's a level of how much my husband knows about me and sees about me. But then there's a level that he doesn't even see. And that's what comes into therapy.
Now, do you think therapy is more like a psychological thing where, hear me out for a second, I'm going to try to talk,
Okay.
say something here.
Yeah.
Because I'm not a mental health expert, so I'm going to spitball something here. Because sometimes when you're frustrated, right, it's hard to get at that frustration until you like let it out to someone, right? I do that to my dad a lot. Right, he knows it. Everyone here knows it. We'll go into a room. I'll just let it all out, and you feel amazing. He won't give me therapy. He'll just probably add on to my stress. But because I got it out, I feel much better.
Yeah.
So, do you think therapy is more so about letting everything out to a person than them, I guess, giving you advice?
We don't give advice.
Okay.
That's the first key of counselling, is you don't give advice. It's not our life to give advice to people. It's theirs. We help them navigate through their life. We walk alongside them.
Right.
We'll mirror things back in a different perspective, unbiased perspective. We don't know them. We have no emotional connection with them.
Right.
So what they say to us, we're giving a professional reflection back to them. We walk alongside them. We guide them. We equip them with modalities and skills and strategies that can help them improve the quality of their life. But as you said, some clients just want to come in to be heard, simply be heard and seen. They already know which direction they're going. They already have those tools. They just want to kind of just listen to me, because you know what, there may be nobody in their life listening to them.
Yeah.
And our biggest need as humans, our most basic need that we have from the moment we're born, is to be seen and heard. And Gabor Mate talks about this, so I'm going to quote him, and he says that humans desire connection and authenticity, attachment and authenticity. And sometimes, well, a lot of the time, when we have to choose between one or the other, we choose attachment over authenticity. So what that means is that when we're showing up in order to feel attached to my family, who doesn't want to see my mental health disorder, I have to act like that doesn't exist and put on a mask for them. So going to a therapist means that I can drop that mask and kind of be me, because that is my need to be authentic, to be seen as who I truly am. Without worrying, is this therapist going to dislike me? Am I going to lose this attachment with this therapist or lose this connection with this therapist if I don't show up as who she wants me to show up? That is the difference between talking to a family member and talking to a therapist.
Right.
Yeah.
And in terms of crying, right, sometimes people say crying is a great way of letting things out.
Yeah.
Is that something you'd also promote as well?
Absolutely.
Just let it all out.
Absolutely. When you need to cry, cry. I think as a society, what do we do when a child cries? A baby newborn. Shove a dummy in its mouth. So from the moment this child's born, it's being taught, don't release that. Don't release it. But Allah has gifted us that emotion and that release for a reason. I mean, you have it, I have it, you have it, you have it. We all have it for a reason. But because society is bothered by it, because some people don't know how to hold space for other people's emotions, and usually the people that don't know how to hold space for other people's emotions are the people that can't confront their own emotions, so they can't hold that space for you.
Yeah.
So they will say, what are you crying for? That's weakness. And crying or releasing that emotion is seen as a sign of weakness. If anything, it's actually a sign of strength. Being vulnerable is a sign of strength. Yeah.
It's harder to show weakness, honestly, especially for guys.
Exactly. Yeah,
You hold on to it.
You have to be very comfortable in your own skin, very confident in who you are as a person. And I think that comes with age. I don't know, I felt it with me as well. I think in your 20s, you're a bit more of a people pleaser. You want to sort of go with the trends and go with the flow and not rock the boat too much. As you get a bit older, you're like, you know what, I'm over it. I can't even bother trying to please everybody.
When was the last time you cried, was it?
The last time I cried...
you could be honest.
it was probably... No, honestly. I was probably about a month and a half ago. I was in Saudi.
Oh, come on, man.
While I was in Saudi, I did. For me, one of the biggest sort of soft spots that I have is children. So you
missed your kids?
No, I didn't cry for my kids.
Oh.
When you see the plight that other kids are in, that's hard. That's very, very hard. I think one thing that, I don't do this as a therapy, but I've unfortunately had to, like, you go to the Royal Children's Hospital or whatever it is. Even just yesterday, I was in the news about those kids, the poor kids who had that bus crash out in the west over here, and there are kids they were reported this morning that they're being, like, arms amputated, legs amputated because of being in a bus crash. And these are parents who came home from work yesterday to be confronted with all that, and they've got mental health services available to them and all that type of stuff, and our thoughts and prayers go out to those families. But that's an area that it's always sort of struck a chord with me. When you see a child, that's a defenseless, innocent little being, and you see them in that plight, that brings a tear to your eye. For me, it always has. I can't, something I struggle a lot with. And once you've had your own children, and then you see them from that innocent little moment they're born, and you bring them up and everything else, and you go through that journey with them, and if anything happens to them, that really hurts. It hurts more than it happens to yourself.
Yeah.
So, no, I agree. I think having a good cry once in a while is good for you. I think men don't really do it often enough, but
I would love to invite you, gentlemen, to try a trial with breathwork. Do either rebirthing type of breathwork. It's an amazing way to release emotion. I think the last time I cried was when I did my own breathwork. For an hour, you do breathwork. We were discussing this earlier.
So you cried for an hour as well?
I don't know if I cried. I guess I lost the concept of time while I'm doing the breath work. I completely lose the concept.
Demonstrate again how you do it for our viewers. You were doing some...
Oh, that's EMDR.
Okay, something different.
That is complete. Right. Yeah, that's EMDR. So I don't run the breath work. I have a breathwork facilitator, and she's been doing this for 12 years. I've gone to other people, and I would say she's the best.
So in a nutshell, breathwork is you sit there for an hour
consciously
in
breathe.
A meditative state, I'm assuming, and you're consciously thinking about your breathing.
So you're laying down for an hour, lights are dimmed, and you will be doing connected breathe. So connected
with everybody else in the room. So it's one
It's more about focusing on your breath, but everyone else is doing it at the same time, connected breathing. And the good thing about it is you can stop at any given time if it's too much. I've had women say, no, I'm not doing it anymore. They've sat up and said, I'm stopping. Sometimes it's a little bit too much. It's confronting. What surfaces during the breath work can be very confronting. What our brain stores in the subconscious mind, our brain is just such a fascinating organ, really is multidimensional. Our brain's job is to protect us. So if you're going through something really difficult, if you've just had a traumatic experience and you don't have people there to hold space for you or support you through that, and it's too much for you to process on your own, a lot of the time your brain will store it in your subconscious mind in order to protect you in that moment. And a lot of this happens during our developmental stages in childhood. I speak with a lot of people that don't have certain age memory. They've got gaps, say from 5 to 10 or 11, no memory. So, and that's a matter of going, okay, how do we dive into that? Because you've got an issue. You may have social anxiety, you may have an anxiety disorder or depression or chronic depression, and medication isn't working for you. Again, I see medication like a bit of a Band-Aid effect. It's good in times, people do need it, but it doesn't heal you. You need to do the work while you're on
In terms of medication, like antidepressant,
antidepressant,
yeah.
anti-anxiety medication.
Right.
Yeah. So if you're constantly taking your medication and if things aren't improving, you've seen therapists, but there's a huge gap in your memory. This is why psychedelics have been approved as medicine. You can dive deep.
You mentioned about the gaps in a person's memory, particularly through childhood. So through the correct methods of therapy, can we resuscitate those memories? You can bring them back.
Yeah, it's a
Really?
matter of, do you want to bring some of the memories back too? Some people haven't been able to cope with some of the memories that have come back. If a memory, there's a sexual assault at a young age by a family member, maybe incest. Are you willing? So these are all things that a person needs to take into consideration if they want to dive into that. Are you going to be able to process what comes out? And this is why we constantly talk about not to take psychedelics recreationally. I am an advocate for them, but in a very therapeutic, controlled environment. As Dr. Bessel van der Kolk says, is that if you're going to blow your mind, do it in the safety of people that can hold that space for you. Because what's going to surface from there isn't going to be pleasant most of the time. It's really not pleasant. And then you need to continue working ongoing treatment with those therapists in order to integrate what's come up, maybe even desensitize because it may be too much, and then reframe it and release it. What I mean by releasing is just processing it.
Yeah.
Sounds like a horror movie. Imagine like all those memories of my dad bashing me just coming back. I want to stay out of that. And talking about the brain, right? Now, I feel like personally, I think a lot of people would agree that overthinking absolutely annihilates the brain, right? I'm assuming you'd agree to this, right? How can we stop overthinking, right? Something bad happens. You have a fight with... I'm going to use my dad as an example. I always use him as an example, right? He's the pinnacle of... Anyways. I'll have a fight with my dad, right? And you'll keep overthinking that, right? You'll always think the worst of what's going to happen. It's almost like you're making up a story in your head and you're getting stressed over something that's not even happening or that's not ever going to happen, right? You're creating stories in your head. Is there like a mental health term for this, or is there what is that?
Or a technique to
like
manage
how
that.
can we stop this?
Cognitive distortions.
What is that?
So cognitive distortions can be catastrophizing a thought.
Right.
It could be fortune telling about a thought.
Okay.
Oh, my dad did this because he's going to do that. Fortune telling about, trying to predict the future.
That's my brother, right?
Yeah, foregone conclusion.
That's my brother.
It could be constantly minimizing the positivity and maximizing the negativity.
Yeah.
So cognitive distortions, and what you need to get into the habit of is metacognitive thinking, and that is learning to become the observer of your thoughts. Every day you have anywhere, and this is research says this, that you have anywhere between 60 to 70,000 thoughts that go through your mind. Your mind is constantly chatting to you. It doesn't mean all these thoughts are true. It's a matter of, how do I become the observer of the thought and not the thought itself? Because when you become the thought itself is when you start overthinking.
Right.
Yeah. It's like saying, I'm anxious right now. Instead of saying I'm anxious right now, I can say, I'm feeling a little anxious in here. I wonder why I'm feeling a little anxious. So you're becoming the observer of the thought. My thought is, I'm feeling a little anxious. That's the thought. So I'm not already putting it on myself and saying, I'm feeling anxious, because that's just becoming the thought. And that's what metacognitive thinking is. And it's also becoming aware of, where are your thought patterns stemming from?
Yeah.
Really becoming the observer. And journaling is a great way of this. Have you tried journaling?
No.
Everyone seems to say that. It's a very common thread.
Journaling?
Journaling. Like sitting there and writing down your thoughts and whatnot.
So there's two ways of journaling. You can either do a prompted guided journal, which I recommend to my clients to do in the mornings. And you can purchase this even from Kmart. Everywhere has these prompted guided journals. It's a matter of every day it's got a list of questions for you to go through. It'll ask you to identify 3 things that you're grateful for. What that automatically does to your brain is it shifts your brain from what you don't have to what you do have. And you're starting the day on a positive note. I'm grateful for this and this and this. You're doing that intentionally. You've stopped and you're intentionally writing down what you're grateful for. And then it'll ask you what's your purpose for the day, what are the tasks you're going to do. So it's very prompted and guided. And it sets the tone for the day. The brain dump that you're talking about, just the journaling, is more like a brain dump at the end of the day or when you need throughout the day. Open it up, and instead of being consumed by the thoughts that are running through your mind, dump it onto pen and paper. It doesn't have to have the correct spelling, the grammar, the sentences, or the paragraphs. It doesn't matter. No one's going to read it but you. And you're probably not going to read it. If you don't want to read it, don't read it. But as long as it's not stuck in your head, release it. So that's another way of journaling.
Have you tried it yourself?
Yeah, I do prompted journal every morning.
Like, did you do it today? So what are you grateful for today?
I guess a lot of the time, sometimes it's big things. I mean, I'm grateful to be having this opportunity to be on this podcast and to be able to share the information and education that I have with so many other people and with all of you. Yeah. I'm grateful for that opportunity. I'm grateful for the opportunity of social media where it connects people like you and I.
That's how I found you. So.
Yeah, it does. And I'm grateful for that. Some days it's bigger things like that. Some days I'm always grateful for my family, for my children, for the roof over my head, for my safety, for my security. But I say to my clients, go a little bit beyond that. Yeah. And they're like, what do you mean? Well, I do telehealth. I work through telehealth. And be like, well, you're grateful that you can have this service in the comfort of your own home because we have technology. Grateful for technology. Some days it's just a little bit harder, especially if your mindset is on more of the negative side. It's a little bit harder to find what you're grateful for. And those days it's just the little things, kind of like, I'm grateful I was able to get out of my bed and take a shower. Some days it's just going to be, but as long as you can find something to show gratitude for that day. I'm grateful that I had the strength to go for a 5-minute walk. I'm grateful to have the safety of my home and the security of my family. Just, some days it could be I'm grateful that someone held the door for me. I'm grateful that someone allowed me to the front of the line at the shopping centre, at the grocery store, because I had so much that I was holding on to. Just little things. Shifting your attention from lack to what you have is going to give you more. It really is. Where your attention and energy goes, all your focus is going to flow.
Yeah. I feel like you're a very happy person. Are you a happy person?
Generally. I mean, I do have my times where I'm negative. If you ask my boys, they wouldn't say that. Yeah, I'm trying to work through generational conditioning, parenting, that authoritarian figure that I've seen from my mum and my dad, not imposing that on my children. And sometimes I do. It comes out. It's like, who are you talking to? I'm your mum.
Yeah.
Like, how come you can't have a voice? You're not entitled to have a voice. So I'm trying to break through all of those. But other than that, I think, alhamdulillah, I have a good life. Yeah. I've had my fair share of struggles like everyone else has, and I believe I will continue to, because this life is a journey of falling down and getting up. And as mental health professionals, it's not about promising that if you come to therapy with me that you're not going to experience any pain, suffering, trauma or hardship along the way. It's more about I will equip you with techniques, modalities and skills that will make you maybe a little bit more resilient. Maybe you may be able to get up a little bit more fast the next time you fall. Or you will know that when you fall, if there's nobody around for you, that there's this person, a professional that you're able to connect with that will listen to you. So
I have a question for you, as we're all parents. What are some techniques that you can advise to ourselves and our listeners of how to build, how to bring up our kids in a manner that is more conducive to better mental health for them?
So that's an area which isn't my expertise, and I don't really talk much about.
Yeah. What are techniques that you've used?
To improve my relationship with my boys.
Yeah.
Listening to them. Just listening. Not trying to give excuses of why I may have hurt them in the way I hurt them. Just listening. Sitting there and going, I hear you.
Mm.
And apologising is one of the biggest and hardest things that, I've had to overcome, and I can do it now, is going and saying, I'm sorry.
Really?
Yeah, because
Have you ever apologized?
Nope.
Oh.
I've grown up in a family where
Oh, you try it, mate. You try
She doesn't understand what sorry is.
Actually, she will.
You reckon?
Yeah, she will. How old is she?
1.5.
Maybe she won't.
Yeah. I can get away with it. You can't.
Mine are 5 and 7. I've never turned around and said sorry for anything.
You just gaslight your children and then they apologize to you.
Absolutely. I've got what you said before about it. I'm your parent, man. How
That
dare
authoritarian
you?
ideology.
I was brought up that way.
That-
It
that
worked
way.
out well for me, so I'm like, I'm going to pass on the same.
So that's why we need to break that cycle.
Exactly.
But in saying that, I might get a little bit of hate for saying
That's
this,
fine, go hard.
but I feel like the oversaturated, overwhelming load of information of mental health that's pumping out from, whether it be mental health practitioners like myself or coaches, I think we're creating an overly sensitive generation.
100%.
Yeah.
Snowflakes.
The resilience is like going down. A while back, I said to my son, I opened the door and I said, you need to clean this room. And the response was, you need to stop abusing me.
Oh, wow.
And yeah.
Yeah.
So
What did you say to that?
Yeah, how do you respond?
I was shocked. And then I guess the Turkish genes in me started flaring
So you
up,
bashed them
and
like slippers?
I was like, what do you mean I'm abusing you? Let me show you what abuse is.
See, then she didn't apologise. Sorry for abusing you.
But there was no abuse there.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean. The overload of information on mental health is just too much.
Yeah.
Too much. There should be a limit on... It's good to be informed, but are you taking this on board to help other people to improve the quality of your life, or are you taking this information on board so you don't have to take accountability and responsibility for anything in your life?
Yeah.
Really, I question, why are you learning all of this? Is it improving the quality of your life? Or is it going to just give you that permission not to take any responsibility and accountability?
Mm.
Everything is gaslighting. Everyone is a narcissist.
Yep.
Everything is toxic. Everything is trauma.
Yeah.
People have forgotten that there may be some difficult experiences in life, and that doesn't necessarily mean that was trauma.
No.
Mm.
The notion of confronting challenges and overcoming those challenges and being resilient, that's gone out the door now. Now it's all about, the universe has to align to my tastes, my requirements, my beliefs, and that's it. And if there's any hurdles along the way, that's their problem, not my problem.
Do you think it's making people more self-centered?
I think
We
so.
live in a selfish world.
Very much so.
selfish world.
Very much
Yeah.
so.
Nobody cares about anyone.
Yeah.
I'm really cautious when I work with my clients on building boundaries. That I remind them boundaries aren't to keep people out. They're not walls. Some people are taught boundaries. I see this as walls. It's like, nope, you crossed my line, get out.
Mm.
Boundaries, I wouldn't establish a boundary with a postman. I could care less about my relationship with a postman. I establish a boundary with the people that are in my life that I care about. And those boundaries can't be walls pushing them out.
Yeah.
You need to know how to establish a boundary also, taking into consideration cultural, ethnicity, age. Everything like that needs to be taken into consideration so you're not left in isolation. Because what happens for people that have been taught to establish boundaries as really hard walls, people have started moving back from them, and isolation has kicked in. They're
Yeah.
lonely.
Yeah.
And you can't have a healthy mental health state in isolation, in loneliness, unless, you choose that makes you happy. Like for me, I can be locked in my room all day with a book, with my phone, with my cup of tea. I could be all day in there, and that makes me happy, but I still make sure that I have that intentional connection with people. I will schedule in a coffee with a friend because we are wired for connection. And the first sign of actually burnout, I was reading through your questions, is one of the first signs of burnout is when someone starts to become more isolated and they start pulling back and they start losing the connection.
Yeah, and we experience that a lot in corporate particularly. It's a rat race, right? So everyone burns out, and you do start to see those signs of, someone who was otherwise sort of in control. They were very, consistent with how they behaved. All of a sudden, they're becoming erratic. They're becoming isolated. They've got a short fuse, and you wonder, okay, well, what's going on over here? And a lot of it is burnout as well.
I think hustle culture has made burnout look like a medal of honor.
Hustle culture.
Yeah, I am so against it. Grind, hustle. I am so against it. Like, the impact it has on mental health is scary. Keep pushing through until you're burnt out. And then you may recover and then get up and keep pushing through again. So you're spending most of your life recovering and then pushing through. And, and sometimes, most of the time, people go into autopilot.
But apparently that's the only way to be successful these days.
To run off autopilot. It depends.
That's what's sold to us as being success these days.
So it depends what your idea of success is. I guess that will change. That's very subjective.
Like being a billionaire is success now.
Yeah.
And everything is for money now. It's not.
It has to be quantifiable success.
Yeah.
Like, having a stable family life and a good family and a good mental health isn't really
one cares about
quantifiable.
that anymore.
You can't post that on social media. You can't brag about that to the world. But if you've got, a $50,000 watch, well, hey, you know what? Okay, that's quantifiable success. So unfortunately, that's what it is, and particularly amongst men. As I said, in our sector, in corporate and whatnot, that's all it is. That is how you are rated, and that's how you are respected and how you're revered based on the car you drive, the house you live in, the accessories that you have. That's unfortunately what it's become.
And I guess Andrew Tate added to that. I know from my boys, as much as I actually like him for what he's done, created so much awareness for the younger generation, that life that he's presented.
So you're a fan of Andrew Tate?
I don't dislike him, but there are some things that I agree with him that he sees, and why he was probably cancelled, and why I would be too if I opened my mouth and didn't have a filter. There are a lot that I agree with what he says. A lot.
It's strange from a female. A female saying that, because almost every female hates the guy.
Yeah.
Almost every therapist has hated on him, used him as a toxic masculine. I do see that a little bit of that toxic masculinity, but I also see him really pulling out of his masculine energy and knows how to balance it out. Yeah.
It's sort of irrelevant now. I don't see him doing much anymore.
Not much. It's all the old reels.
Ever since his hair's grown, he's become redundant.
He's less famous. I've got one last question. I know I'm conscious of time. Life coaches.
Are we going to go in that, really?
I have to talk about it because I don't know about you, but I'm fed up, absolutely fed up with every time you open up any social media channel, you have every Tom, Dick and Harry turning up and trying to sell people the notion of, I have lived life and I can coach you through yours. Yeah. And my question's always been, I asked my wife this, I'm like, what has this person actually accomplished that they can actually share with somebody else and say, look, if you mirror my journey, you mirror my behaviors or mirror my experience or whatever it is, that you will end up being a successful person or you'll end up achieving your dreams or your aspirations or whatever. What's your take on life coaches? Because it's a play, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
It is. They're not regulated. They don't have a body or a board that they have to answer to that checks in on them. Basically, they push a lot of toxic positivity. The other day I came across a page of a young girl, Muslim girl, She's probably in her early 20s, giving marriage advice. She's single.
It's a bit rich, yeah.
It's usually single ones.
Yeah.
Wow, interesting. I thought, wow, I wasn't really confident enough to give marriage advice till I was or do couples counselling till I was about 35. And even at that age, I was married for 15 years. I'll be married this year for this year was 22 years. So, yeah, look, they can do a lot more harm working with people that have trauma. They promote themselves as therapists, and unfortunately in Australia, anyone can call themselves a therapist. You can call yourself a therapist. And I do have a lot of clients that have come from life coaches that have caused more harm. They went to them because they were quite confused because they said that they were therapists. They're not educated enough in behavioural psychology. They're not educated in the cognitive functioning, in mental health. They don't have the supervision. They don't have the ongoing professional development. They're basically selling a dream. Look, there are and there are some life coaches, I guess good ones, that you do need. You may be able to, you may have healed yourself from your trauma and your mental health may be well, but you may need that little bit of a push and the motivation, and you may want to work with a coach with that. But if you have a mental health condition, or you find that you're feeling depressed, you don't have to have a condition. You're feeling that you may be depressed, anxious, you need to work with a mental health professional. Someone that is trained in the field, someone that can hold that space, someone that knows the legal and ethical guidelines, which are very important. I mean, I'm going to leave it there with coaches because I can say a lot more.
I feel like there's a lot of people that's annoying you. There's a lot of names.
and
I
this
feel
is
it.
her platform.
And it'll be funny if one of them just rocks up on this podcast. It's like, no. I feel it. Please, I'll be careful to who we invite next.
Yeah,
So,
look,
damn.
you know what? I think, and that's why I have boundaries with my phone.
Okay.
I have created boundaries with my phone, with social media, with my apps. None of my notifications are on.
Okay.
It's only the text message notifications that will come, is because you can get consumed by it and find yourself endlessly scrolling and becoming really upset. You can hear a coach say, this is what you need to do if you are with a narcissist. If this and this and this has been done to you, you have been gaslit. These are the signs of childhood trauma. Everyone's journey is very different. We are very unique creatures. We're individually created, unique. We cannot just generalize our experience and say, tick the box. And that's why I'm against labeling. Not a very big fan of it. But if you're going to get a clinical diagnosis, just make sure that that clinical diagnosis you're getting is to empower you, not disable you. Yeah. Because a lot of people can hide, if they're not given the right treatment after a clinical diagnosis, if they're not working with a mental health professional in order to, okay, this is my diagnosis, this is my condition, what can I do in order to navigate through life and make my life a little bit more easier with this? How is this, knowing this diagnosis is going to improve the quality of my life? Because before, for example, knowing that you didn't have ADHD, now you know you have ADHD, what can I do in order to improve the quality of my life? So that is to empower you. But then to say, don't take any accountability or responsibility for your behaviour or actions and say, I have ADHD, that's why I'm like this. That's to disable you. Yeah.
That's actually a very good point.
It
On
is.
that note, the way we end the podcast, I don't know if you've watched that.
Well, yeah, I
podcast.
have.
You have? You know how it works. We're going to end with the 10 rapid fire out of interest questions.
Oh, let me just sit up for that one. It's already hot in here. I'm thinking.
It is. First question.
Okay.
Your favorite date activity with your spouse?
Cinemas.
Cinemas.
Watching a nice
Have
movie.
you watched any good movies recently?
No, we haven't been able to with Ramadan and then coming out, and we haven't been able to go.
All right. You're Turkish, so I'm going to ask this. What's your favorite Turkish show?
I don't watch Turkish shows.
No. What kind of a Turk are you then?
Yeah, no, I don't watch Turkish shows.
Like ever?
very rarely when it would be playing on my phone while I'm in the kitchen
Right.
cooking in the background, kind of creating some background noise.
I reckon Turkish shows add to the mental health.
Really?
Of
It
Turkish
does.
populace.
Because what they're doing
It's
is
unrealistic lives.
tuning out of your own reality and
Yeah.
tuning into some fantasy.
Yeah.
100%. And it's always the same thing. Rich guy, very rich guy, and a poor girl, or very rich. Oh, anyway, same thing all over again. Do you prefer the day or night?
I like both. There's the beauty of both.
Right.
I enjoy both. I enjoy the early mornings, watching the sunrise, and I like the night too.
Right.
Yeah.
What's your favorite food?
Favorite food? I don't have a favorite food, but I love sweets.
What's your favorite sweet?
Knefe?
Turkish one?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Someone else said that on the podcast. I can't remember who. No, it's favorite superhero.
Ooh. Don't have a favorite superhero.
You don't
No.
watch
No.
Batman?
No, I can give you some psychiatrist names.
No, here.
Dr. Gabor Mate,
Never
Dr.
heard of
Bessel
him.
van der Kolk.
What is your deepest fear?
Deepest fear is my soul to be taken before God is pleased with me.
Yep.
That's a new one for this one. Yeah, solid. I'm scared of that too now. Is there a quote that resonates with you?
Oh, there's a lot of quotes that resonate with me. I mean, I love quotes. I'm always doing cliche quotes, but they're cliche,
Yeah.
but they're very true.
Yeah.
You can either run your day or the day will run you.
I see that.
So you
That's
can
a
either
good one.
set the pace for the day. Obviously, we can't control certain things that may happen throughout the day that are out of our control. But if you intentionally set the pace for the day and the tone, you're running your day.
Yeah.
At least you're doing that. You've set that intention to do that.
Yeah. No, never heard that quote. That's a great quote. What? Did I ask that? No, I didn't ask that. What motivates you the most?
What motivates me? My stomach's making noise. What motivates me the most? My husband motivates me the most.
Really?
Mm.
Is he like your cheerleader?
He is my biggest cheerleader. He's my biggest support.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cute. That's very nice.
It's nice.
Is
Nice to
your
hear.
spouse your cheerleader?
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
Depends.
What is something you want to tick off in your bucket list? Jumping off an airplane, going somewhere,
Going to do our pilgrimage.
which is soon, hopefully.
Inshallah.
Yeah,
Inshallah.
which is soon. What advice would you give your 18-year-old self?
My 18-year-old self. Have faith in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Believe in yourself. Believe in yourself.
Believe in yourself.
Yeah, have
Yeah,
faith.
100%. Confidence.
Confidence.
Be confident in yourself and what you want to do.
Yeah. Very important.
Confidence is not something that we can acquire and keep forever. Confidence is something that you keep working on
Yeah.
every day, like a
100%.
muscle.
On that note, it's been a great chat. Mental health is a big topic.
It is.
Everyone,
Yeah.
It seems like everyone has some sort of mental health issue now. Everyone's pigeonholed into something. I hope the viewers could learn something here because I personally did. And it's been
Very
a great
insightful.
chat.
Yeah.
And it's been an absolute honour having
Thank
you
you.
on. And thank you so much. And hopefully we'll see you again after your pilgrimage. right?
Inshallah. Thank you for inviting me. It really has been great.
you very
Honestly,
much.
thank you.